Welcome to the Past Life Project. I'm Monique, hypnotherapist and regression specialist. Let me bring you into my world where just another day in the office is not your typical desk job. In each episode, we will be delving into the extraordinary realm of past lives through my own therapy practice, client stories and interviews, and conversations with practitioners that are utilizing past lives as a powerful modality for healing. Tune in to find out how people just like you are healing from a range of physical, emotional, and spiritual issues by exploring their previous incarnations. Are you ready to dive into the future of therapy? It's time to turn back time with the Past Life Project. Welcome to the Past Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Monique, hypnotherapist and regression therapy specialist. And with me today, I have Peter McLaughlin, who I'm excited about because he is a fellow certified hypnotherapist and life coach whose healing journey began after a leukemia diagnosis in 2003. This turning point led him to explore the powerful connection between mind, body, and spirit. Peter helps clients find and resolve root cause trauma using havening, present and past life regression, and other deep spiritually oriented healing methods. Welcome, Peter. And I feel like there's kind of a cliffhanger in your introduction of, okay, I need to hear about this healing experience and how many of us have those, so-called dark night of the souls that really prompt us to change our way of being. Yes. Right? It's like, you get smacked a spiritual smack upside of the head of like, okay, time to wake up, right?
Yeah. That's exactly how I think of it, is being smacked upside the head with a spiritual 2x4. The diagnosis was asymptomatic, and it was the same day. It was two things. It was chronic lymphocytic leukemia. And when I said, how long do I have? They said, maybe 10 years. That was in 2003. And also Lyme disease. So same day, I got a twofer. And I think I would say my stubborn nature required something that intense in order to get my attention. My belief is that I had multiple signals up until that point. It's like somebody knocking on your door and they need to get in touch with you. Ring the bell, knock, 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 and then pounding, and then getting battering ram to knock open the door before I was willing to pay attention. So yeah, that really presented, in my view, an opportunity to me. And I decided to take that opportunity, walk through that proverbial doorway, and it led me over the course of about 3 years to becoming a hypnotherapist, because I felt like I had to get control of my subconscious mind. As you know, mind and body are connected. And I wasn't being offered anything that made any sense to me by the conventional authorities. We don't know what causes this. We don't know how to cure it. And I was like, well, why am I talking to you? Like, this doesn't make any sense. I got to find another way. And I really believe that I wasn't following the path that my soul or my spirit had intended for me to follow for this life. And this is the way it got my attention. And that when I finally heeded the call, it led me to something that felt so perfect. It felt like a calling.
It's interesting when you experience that for the first time, that before you experience it, people talk about a calling. It's like, what do you mean a calling? And I still, I love my work, but when you find that true calling, there's an ease about it. And not that you don't have to put the effort in and study and keep up on top of things and do the work, but there's this sort of effortlessness to it that it just comes natural to you. And you don't even realize that you're doing it until other people say, hey, how do you do that? Can you teach me how you do that thing? And you don't even know how to describe it because there's this fluid nature to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the same thing with meeting your, the husband or wife. I remember asking my grandmother when I was in my late teens and early 20s, how do you know when you meet the right person? And she would say the same unsatisfying thing that everybody says, the same thing that I would say to somebody now if they ask me the question, which is, you'll know.
You would rip your hair out as a teen. Like, what do you mean? What are the signs?
Yeah, and when I met my wife, it was 20 minutes after meeting her, within 20 minutes. The way I describe it is I heard a bell ringing in my head. It wasn't a literal gong, 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 but the only way I can describe it is that there was a bell ringing and it was unmistakable. And I'd never felt that way before. And there are some similarities between that and what you're talking about with your vocation, what might be called the golden path. That, yeah, you still have to do the work. Yeah, you have difficulties and so on, but there's another part of it that feels easy. It feels right. It doesn't feel like you have constant friction and resistance.
Yeah, that you're not fighting against something all of the time.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And maybe you feel like you actually have some innate abilities that allow you to do this, and you don't necessarily even know where those abilities came from. Probably a past life.
I was going to say, yeah, with the stuff we do, probably, a past life or two that are all just coming in and that you're not actually given credit for. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So did you start as a client of hypnotherapy then, working through your own stuff? Did you just jump right into it? What drew you to it?
I actually jumped right in. I mean, the reason I had the diagnosis was I was volunteering in the wake of 9/11. We lived in Connecticut, not far from the New York border, and I worked on Wall Street when all that happened. And I was volunteering to be a firefighter, later became firefighter EMT in my town in Connecticut, and they make you take an extensive physical. And on the first day of the physical, the doctor said to me, "Wow, you're in really good shape for your age." At the time, I was 41. And come back and give blood. I came back and gave blood, and that's when the alarm bells went off. And so I had this very heavy identification with being a first responder during these 3 years from diagnosis until I found my way to the training. And this series of events occurred that when each event occurred, it was like, oh, that's interesting. But later it was like, no, it was all like little steps on a path. Somebody had walked into a little shipping and packing store that I owned in Connecticut and had a box, and it was labeled Hypnotherapy Academy of America, Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I got into an hour-long conversation with this woman whose sister was one of the founders of the academy. And it turned out that her husband at the time was a former paramedic, and that they had organized this whole school around the medical adaptations of hypnotherapy. The adjunctive uses and it was like, how could this not be the perfect place? And when I called them, it was like on a Thursday, because I think on Wednesday night, I looked at my wife, she looked at me after we watched this movie together, and I said, I have to be a hypnotist. And she looked at me and she said, yes, you do. And then the next day I called the school and they said, we have one spot left and the class starts on Monday. And I was just like, I'll take it. And I got there and she wasn't lying. That was the last spot. There were 40 people in the class and I was like the 40th to join.
Like a fine timing, right? It's amazing.
Yes. And part of this school was you chose one of the instructors to be your hypnotherapist. So the education was from both sides of the equation, if you will. And these sessions were incredibly deep and very, very powerful. And I felt like I had a massive transformation personally while I was there as a result of those sessions. And then the students, we were all away from home. We were all living there. And we would work together in the evenings and we would work together on the weekends. And I had some other incredible experiences with other students, like spontaneous past life regressions and so on. So no, I didn't have any experience as a client before I went out there. I just literally felt called, and that was the place. And I can see now, 20 years later, that was the right move. That was the perfect place, the perfect time for me to be there.
And what a neat way to structure it, that you work closely with another mentor who's leading you through your own stuff. Because how many, and not just in hypnotherapy, in all of these professions, you spend all of these years studying and you never flip to the other side of what does it actually feel like to be that person, to work on my own stuff so I'm not constantly triggered when my clients come to me. I just think that is such a revolutionary way of teaching in general.
For sure. And they used to say to us, and these were like 10-hour days, 5 days a week. They were very intense. And they would say to us, you're going in and out of trance all the time. And you're learning things on the conscious and the subconscious level. And you will be surprised when you go into practice how you're able to just pull something out and you don't even know where it came from. And that is exactly correct. That is exactly true. I have never worked with scripts. I just trust that something else is guiding me. And I know that part of it is from the education there, but another part of it is just I'm a human being and I have the same ability to tap in as you do or anybody else. And when we trust that, when we have faith and we practice more and more, it just starts flowing more and more, I think.
And isn't it a beautiful thing when you're working with someone and after they ask you, how did you know that you said the exact thing that I needed to hear, right? It's like, because you're just, like you said, you're tapping into that. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just tapping into it and I'm bringing it to you. I'm the mouthpiece that's reinstated.
Yeah. I'm the copper wiring that the electronic signal is following.
Exactly. And that's telling you over and over that this is what you need. And it flows so much. I don't know. It flows in such a magical way. And it's exactly what that person needs versus a script that is very generalized. And I feel in general, that's where kind of, I don't know, regular air quotes hypnotherapy falls short a lot of the times, is that it's like a lot of other models where we're just blanket giving this one formula for everyone. And this one script doesn't hit home for all the individual needs, nor does it address all of the root causes underneath that the subconscious is like, well, those are nice, pretty words, but what about all of these alarm bells going off? It's just kind of a blanket, script for everyone. And we can't assume that that's going to reach, just like in any other medicine. You can't give all the people one thing and it's going to help everyone. But I see a fear in people that I know of going unscripted and kind of going into the unknown, because as the therapist, when you have the script, you're somewhat in control. I'm reading off this paper and I'm directing the session, where this is much more client directed and you're trusting that there's this innate wisdom and that's what's going to guide us. And we're just, like you said, you're the wire. You're just tuning in and going with it. I find it makes it actually more reassuring that way, that it's not all on you as the human being if you're tapping into that in a way, right? Kind of the pressure's off. I don't need to tell you, oh, it's probably your childhood or, oh, your mother issues. It's like, no, there's some part of you that knows exactly what you need to do and where you need to go. And we're going to tap into that. And it's probably going to surprise both of us. That's kind of fun of it. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting to meet others that are working in that way, where you're just tapping in, like you said, that we all have the ability to tap in those ways. And the person that you're working with, when you go into that trance state, you're allowing them to sit there and to tap into all of that.
Yeah. And we were talking before you pressed record about at least what I feel is a huge part of my job, and that is to help people remember the capabilities that they have, which involves faith, trusting what's coming rather than pushing it away. Like, that can't be true. That's just my imagination. I'm making it all up. But to rather kind of teach them how to be almost like a child again, or to be an audience member in a theater where everybody in the audience has something called a suspension of disbelief. Like, they're able to sit down, come from work and to sit down in a chair amongst a bunch of other people and to look up at a stage where curtain opens. And if they look up high, they can see the stage lights. They know that these are actors. But if they suspend their disbelief, they can be swept up if the story is good, if the acting is good, if the directing is good, and have emotional responses and go on this kind of roller coaster ride. And I believe it's the same thing with a client having a past life regression or doing anything in the spiritual realm, meeting their spirit guides, meeting ascended masters, hearing what they say. Because we've all been raised in a culture that tells us it's all in our head. It's only a dream. It's just your imagination. As if those things are these kind of bizarre little anomalies that have no real validity at all. And as I've thought about this, I've realized that no, our greatest power is our imagination. The only reason that we're living in houses instead of caves, and that we fly in airplanes, and that we have mobile phones, and that we have MRI machines and lasers is because people could imagine it. And are we saying that that's just their imagination? Like, how else would these things have been brought into the physical plane? And everybody now has been trained to say, oh, I'm just making that up. That's just my imagination. No, it's not. I'm sorry, it's not. It's more powerful than that. And just like watching a movie or a theatrical production, you're welcome after it's over to let your conscious mind come in and analyze the hell out of it. Go right ahead. But if you've had the transformation, then it's just this weird little exercise of, oh, I really liked, so-and-so's performance, and I thought the directing could have been better, and I thought the costumes were wonderful. Well, who cares? The point about the production is to move you. Is to move you emotionally. And I feel the same way about the work that we do. It's helping them suspend their disbelief so that they can allow their innate ability to rise to the surface, to heal their lives, to get insight that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten, and to stop spinning in the conscious mind of why does this always happen to me?
It's funny how we get obsessed and needing to prove it in that way, that, like you said, when the results are there and the shift is there, then who cares? Right? Who cares if it's a past life, if it's a metaphor, if whatever it is, whatever the mechanics are behind it, if it's giving us the results and the shift and the healing, it can be very hard to just accept that, can't it? It's like the conscious mind needs to explain how, and we need to put this like through the ringer and, do research and testing and figure out what is actually going on, right? Instead of just sitting in the magic of, wow, holy crap, that was really amazing. And I feel great now. So now I'm just going to enjoy feeling good.
Sometimes I describe the conscious mind as the village idiot, who appears on Main Street as the parade is just finishing and passing through town, and then says to somebody who's standing on the side of Main Street, what just happened? Like, now I'm supposed to describe to you, village idiot, all the things that happened in this parade that went on for, an hour. Well, there was a float, and there was a band, and there was... Yeah. Yeah, and if people can allow that part of them, just like they do when they watch a movie, to just sit over there on a chair and shut up, and with the proviso that it can, after it's over, it can say anything it wants. It can criticize, it can knock down, it can question, whatever. But for now, to just absorb it, just let it happen, which, P.S., in the greatest moments of your life, you're not analyzing them while they're happening. You're not. When you hold your baby for the first time, you're not analyzing the weight and the length and all these other, irrelevant facts. Or when you're in love with your beloved, you're not analyzing every moment when you're together. You would ruin it. When you're playing a sport or you're gardening or something and you're just lost in the moment, or lying on a beach, you're not lying there on the beach analyzing the quality of the sun touching your skin. You're just in it. And so I feel a lot of what we're doing, a lot of what I feel like I'm doing is helping people, giving them almost like permission, reminding them of how to go back to a place that is innately natural for them. But they've been persuaded that there's something that's not the right way.
And did that come naturally when you started your training, or was it afterwards? I've heard stories of hypnotherapists who have gone kind of the traditional route, and then all of a sudden, a client spontaneously regresses and they're like, what's going on here? Was that part of your training, was also bringing that intuitive side into it, or was that something that you fell into afterwards?
I think it was both. I think that the training clearly had a major intuitive aspect to it, in that the lead instructor kept saying, you're going to be picking things up that it's going to have nothing to do with the notes that you're taking. It's going to have nothing to do with analyzing or being rational. It's just because you're in and out of trance all the time and we're constantly doing things, you're just going to almost pick it up by osmosis. So these are other ways of saying intuition, I think. And then it was a heavy emphasis on root cause. So they did teach past life regression, but I didn't take that. I didn't even feel like I had to, because to me, a current life regression, the mechanics of a current life regression are the exact same as a past life regression. All I really needed was, in addition to having my own spontaneous past life regressions, was to read some books about practitioners and their approach and how they felt about it, and case studies and so on, and then to just start doing them. And then once I started doing them, it was and continues to be a constant process of refinement, I would say. I would say that in general in my practice, I'm constantly interested in simplifying things, simplifying, boiling it down to its essence, so that when people come in with a complex problem or series of problems, it's easier for me to break it down into the simplicity of it. And then how to get the result in a shorter time frame. What is absolutely necessary, and what do we not absolutely have to do? Because when I started, I definitely did go to, the first scene that you drop into, and now go to that evening's meal, and then look in your pockets. Do you have any money? Do you have any tools or weapons with you? Go to your best day, go to your worst day, go to the lesson that you learned, go to the time when you die. Now look back, what's the lesson you learned from that life? And that's all great. It's all really good. But there are ways of really moving through that in much more rapidly to get the client to their goal. They're there because they want to resolve something. They want to understand something. As a carpenter these days, I could use a handsaw or I could use a power saw. If the result is the same, client's happy, like, why not use the power saw?
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a difference when you actually have an issue that you want to resolve versus like, oh, well, this is kind of cool. I just want to see, what lives I've had, and we're just going to go and kind of watch the show, versus, like you said, when you want to resolve the thing, you don't want to putz around with, like, does it matter what I was wearing? No, not really. Let's get to the heart of it, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've called that past life tourism.
Yeah.
And where I've come to is everyone has something. Why do we really want to go there for tourism, or do we want to combine it with something? Even if it's, hey, there's a skill that I had that might be useful for me in this life, and I want to remember that skill. Let's do it. Let's tie it in with something.
Yeah, other than just going to kind of watch the movie, right? Yeah.
Yes, which is cool. It definitely is. And I have content on my YouTube channel that basically does that, because in a generic sense, you can't gear it towards, everyone, a million people who watched your video. So I have one past life regression video that has just under 1 million views. And it has to be more generic. And it still has value, because people will say, oh, I went here, I went there, I did this, I did that. This is how it lines up with my present life, and so on. So there's a way that the subconscious has of connecting it to something valuable. So even if it's tourism, I think it probably has value.
Or when people come with their agenda, this is what, I want to do. And then the subconscious takes the totally different direction that they really didn't want to go, because that's getting into the emotional nitty gritty. And the subconscious is like, well, I don't really care about your conscious agenda, right? Because this is where you need to go. Doesn't matter where you want to go. And that's always funny when that unexpected comes up,
It is.
right?
I love that. I love that. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
It's true. People come with all their plans and it's like, that's great. Or, this is what I want to do and I want to experience a past life, but maybe you end up going to your childhood or an ancestor instead. That root is actually in. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing like that. So how were some of your first experiences? You said they were spontaneous.
Yep, they were spontaneous. I was doing with three other male students. We were over at one guy's apartment, and the guy with the apartment had a crystal bowl, and he also had this unbelievable ability of going into a trance and vocalizing, and it sounded like 30 different people coming out of this one guy. These noises, these sounds, and these sounds, sometimes you could feel something pop in your body based on a sound he was making. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. And he became kind of like my mentor, even though he was another student. He was about 10, 15 years older than me. He looked and sounded like he walked right out of my family. And he just kind of took a shine to me. And we did a bunch of things outside of class together. And that was one of them. And he was playing this crystal bowl. He was making these sounds. And we were passing energy around in a circle, the four of us. And I could feel the energy coming in and I could feel it leaving, feel it coming in, feel it leaving. And at a certain point, I remember, like, all of a sudden I was in ancient Egypt and I was standing first person in this white cotton robe. And I looked down at my left arm and I could see that my arm was thinner than it is now and my skin was much darker, especially in contrast to the white robe, which was like unbelievably white and very fine weave. And I could see in front of me at nighttime, there were torches, and then the pyramids were just beyond the torches. And then it moved to another scene where I was inside one of the pyramids walking along a ramp. And I think we were walking down a ramp and there were torches inside. And then just as fast as that happened, I was looking through a stained glass window out onto a moor at night. And I looked down below me and there were like 4 monks holding me up. And I was a boy of maybe 12. And then it switched again. And I was sitting on a leather seat inside a horse-drawn carriage going through that same moor at night. And I could look down and see the cracks in the leather. And then just as fast as that happened, the Virgin Mary was in front of me. And I remember saying to her, "Thank you for loving me." And she said, "I've always loved you." And I had these tears streaming down my face. It was like, wow. And there were no drugs involved. It was a crystal bowl. It was passing energy back and forth. It was the vocalizing he was doing. And it was four men who were students and practiced with going in and out of trance. That something about all of this created this experience, which was just mind-blowing to me.
And the body really is the barometer in that way, that when the conscious mind wants to deny the experience altogether, that there's that proof in how the body is responding to things emotionally and physically that can be that convincer, I think, that conscious mind needs sometimes, of like there's something special happening when you're talking about this involuntary tears coming. Like there's no explanation for why I would just start spontaneously crying other than there's something there.
I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. And this leads me into, obviously, you've done a lot of thinking about this because of the work that we do, and so have I, about what is reality. And my current thinking about what is reality, to answer that question, is that there are different versions of it. Like the allegory of Plato's cave, or those nested Russian dolls, or the movie The Matrix, that there are different versions of reality. And the one that we've been raised in is extremely small. It's tiny. It's a 5 sense reality, meaning if you can't access it with one of your 5 senses, or there isn't a machine that's been built as an interface allowing you to access it with one of your 5 senses, it largely doesn't exist to our culture. Even though, I remember when I was in the business world, it would make me absolutely batshit nuts when people would be at the front of a group of people and they would say things like, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. And my feeling was, that is insane. Like, if I asked that same person, let's say they have 2 kids, do you love your kids? They'd probably say yes. And then what if I said, prove it? How would they prove it? Oh, I bought them new bicycles? That doesn't prove you love them. I give them a nice house to live in? That doesn't prove you love them either. I take them on camping trips? That doesn't prove you love them either. Prove it, or it doesn't exist. Like, let's get real, people. You know, there's a larger version of reality just outside that tiny one. And I think that you said something very important when you said, when the emotions get going, you know that you've tapped into reality, because no one would say that, you know, Monique crying right now, sobbing, isn't real. That's obviously real. And my next question would be, how does something fake, like say a movie or a song or a novel, how does something fake create something real? How can a past life regression that creates emotions like that, how can it be fake? How does something fake create something real? Can I put fake seeds in the ground to create real plants? So to me, it is real. Like, a movie is actually real. Hollywood movie, it's real. It's a different version of reality. Anything that produces real physical, psychological, emotional responses, by definition, in my opinion, has to be real. It's just a different version. It's a larger version of reality. Like a near-death experience is stepping out of the 5 sense reality. The person doesn't have 5 senses when they're dead. But they may be talking to Jesus. They may be talking to their grandfather. They may be talking to other beings of light and feeling this overwhelming sense of love that they describe when they are revived. But I feel like we've got to get out of this 5 sense reality nonsense. You know, is seeing believing? Yeah, well, sometimes. You know, we can see AI. and this is how passionate I am about this. You can probably hear it in my voice. I've looked into what is the percentage of the light spectrum that is visible light. In other words, what percentage of the light spectrum can you see with your eyeballs? 0.0035. And in our arrogance, we stand there and say, well, that's woo-woo. That's crazy. That person's a nut. That one's sane. I think that they're really spitting truth over there. You see what I mean? Like, how do you know? Like, what? The room you're in right now is probably filled with other life forms. You know, quantum physicists tell us that time is an illusion, that everything is happening now. And I just, with my 0.0035%.
You know everything, obviously.
Right. I'm tuned into one radio station on a band that has 50,000 stations. And I say, well, that's the only music there is. It's country western. That's it. No, I'm just tuned into that one. That's the frequency that I'm receiving with my 5 physical senses. But my internal senses can expand that band, can tap into other frequencies. And that's how people remote view. That's how people are mediums. That's how people have past life regressions. They're just on a different frequency. But you can't do it through your physical eyeballs. At least I don't think you can.
And honestly, that makes me question, even within our field, what we label as current life regression and past life regression, even ancestral or parallel lives, you know, or starseed, other planet past lives, that we try to kind of compartmentalize them in, I guess, human ways, right? And I start to look at it like, is it even in the past, right? If we're accessing all of this, why is the past any different than going back to my childhood? Or is everything here all at once? And it's just easier for us to explain to other very linear minded humans that, okay, this is the past and this is we'll do future life progression and then we'll do this current life, when it's all just happening simultaneously.
It's all happening at the same time. And that's why it's so important to heal the past, because when you heal the past, you heal the present and you heal the future. And the way I first conceived of this that made sense for me, again, trying to simplify things, is to think of a high-rise building. Let's say it has 27 stories. And you and I, right now, we're on the third story, the third floor, and we're having a conversation in my living room or something. We can easily accept that the other 26 floors, there are people going about their lives on those 26 floors, even though we can't access them or detect them with our 5 physical senses. But we could go to the elevator bank and go from the 3rd floor to the 17th floor and now have a different reality on the 17th floor, the life that people are leading there, and still have an awareness that the other 26 floors still have life on them. And that the elevator bank is your time machine, which is your consciousness. You know, you're not going to get into a box with a bunch of dials and everything and transport your body through time. You're going to transport your consciousness through time. That's your elevator bank.
It's an interesting way to put it. I like that way, because I can't count the number of people that have also come to me with a belief of past lives, thinking that it's something they did wrong, that they must have been a horrible person and this is karma and they've been punished because of their past lives, and not looking at it from this angle. So they feel they need to heal that and almost be, you know, it's some redemption, you know, mission that they're on, versus what happened then is still affecting you now, because the trauma is still, it's all accessible all at one time, instead of this very linear way of looking at it is, I need to redeem myself, I need to, you know, clear or heal or do whatever, and then I'll feel better in the now, versus, okay, that traumatized version of me, I can still feel that because that is still me now. I'm still tapping into it. It's still on this other floor. Just because I don't see it doesn't mean that I can't feel that it's going on.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, that brings up probably a similar concern. One of the most common concerns that people have about past life regression is I'm afraid of what I may have done. And I like to compare that to the life of an actor. When an actor dies, there's this guy named Alan Rickman. Nobody says, "What a bastard. Did you see what he did to Bruce Willis in that first Die Hard movie?" Like, no one says that. And I believe it's the same, that the actor is the soul or the spirit, and the character is the persona, the personality and the body and the gender that we take on for this lifetime. And that each lifetime, just like each role an actor plays, informs the actor, informs the soul. It doesn't permanently define the actor or define the soul. And do I believe that there's a karma? Yes, I believe in the law of cause and effect. I don't think that karma is punitive. I think karma is for education, for learning. It's how we learn. And I also believe in the need to atone for transgressions that we have made. I believe it's important to forgive and to be forgiven and to forgive ourselves, honestly and earnestly, from the deepest parts of our heart. And I love the word atone, because when I look at it, I can see 2 words inside of it, which is at one. When there's a trauma, I think we become bifurcated. We get shattered in a way. It's even been shown with the horrible things that the CIA did with MK Ultra, that they were purposely trying to fracture people's minds. And when there's a trauma, the mind fractures. And I think our work is, a lot of it is to reunify the mind. That's what healing does. And it's just interesting to me that the word atone is like to say a unification, at one, to become at one with our soul, to become at one with God, with other people.
There's all these little hidden breadcrumbs in things when you start paying attention to them, aren't there?
Yes, there are. There really are. And I'm 64 years old. there's words that still pop up and like, wait a minute, hold on. The things I've said my whole life. And then there it is. It's weird when it happens, but it's also kind of exciting. You know, what's just been flying into the radar for that long, and suddenly you see it with its maybe more rich, wholer, more complete meaning.
Yeah, that you're looking at it from one-sided perspective for your whole life, and then all of a sudden it turns around. It's like, oh my gosh, I never saw. It's like a whole different world over on this side of things.
I was listening to a song from the 70s, Spotify or something, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And there's a lyric in there, you see it's all clear. You were meant to be here from the beginning. I was like, wow, the hairs are still going up on my arm because everybody, all of us, we were meant to be here. Every interaction, everything, it was designed and planned, and we were part of that. And I feel like there's so much hope and purpose and meaning and healing just in that concept that you were meant to be here. You know, that you're a child of God, that you have value, you have meaning, you were meant to be here. It's all clear from the beginning. I love it. I've heard that song a million times since I was a kid. I was a kid in the 70s. I remember that song. Probably heard it 1,000 times. And then just why this time? I don't know. But there it was. Boom. You see, it's all clear. You were meant to be here from the beginning. Wow. Those people, a lot of them, from their tripping on acid and everything, I think they were really tapping in to some serious wisdom. I mean, they were ruining their lives at the same time, probably, many of them. And many of them tragically died early, but they were really tapping into a much deeper level of awareness.
Which is, I mean, what creating this space allows, to tap into that and to trust that too, because so many people, like you said, there's this, makes you realize how we've been taught as a human race in general, because this spans across countries and cultures, that, and not exclusively to one or another. I can say that I've worked with people from different places or different cultures where things are more accepted than in North America. I think North America, we're probably the worst for not trusting inside, but taught to not trust inside, that's the fearful place, like you said, to go, that going outside for advice and for help and for healing, that's okay. We can trust other practitioners, but that going inside is the scariest place because I don't know what's going to be there. Instead of trusting that, oh my gosh, there's something inside of me that knows exactly what I need to do, where I need to go, that's only going to show me what I need to know and what I'm capable of handling at the time, that I'm not going to be thrown into this intense trauma that is only going to make things worse in this lifetime. I work with children and teens as well. And I find I love working with kids because the way they experience these things is very fantastical and metaphorical. And I haven't had one child that gets thrown into like a World War II battle scene, right? With the subconscious brings it in a way that they can handle. So they're not re-traumatizing this 10-year-old child in this lifetime. So if us adults can trust, I've had clients as well that, their psychic sense of vision, of their seeing kind of gets turned off, because I feel the subconscious is wisdom, is like, they're going to get too wrapped up in these visuals. So we're just going to turn it off, just allow them to feel their emotions. So the conscious mind can't kick in and be like, oh, analyze this to death, go into all of the details. It's going to take apart from where they need to be in their body emotionally. But there's just such a disconnect from trusting that it's okay to go inside, that actually that's where the healing is. That's where the answers are inside, because I see that in practice too, is there's a huge fear of what if I go in, what if I remember things, what if I see things that I don't want to see, almost like there's just this hidden, fear stuff that, I don't know, we're hiding from ourselves. We're blocking away, that we don't want to go there. We don't want to open that Pandora's box. Yeah.
Right. Which to me is like leaving rotting meat in your pantry and shutting the door and putting tape around the cracks and spraying Lysol every other day on the tape. And when you walk by it, kind of pinching your nose, holding your breath, versus like getting your courage together and putting on some rubber gloves and a clothespin on your nose or whatever you have to do, or some Vicks underneath your nose, and walking in there and picking up this very unpleasant carcass or whatever's been in there and putting it in a trash bag and taking it out of your house and bringing it to the dump. And then going back in and now cleaning it up and reclaiming a whole room in your house and feeling all of the pride that comes along with doing that, feeling all of the capability that it took to do that, instead of scurrying by it every time you walk through your kitchen. And this is another version, actually. I think there's a metaphor embedded in there about the fracturing of the mind. Here's part of your house that's not usable for you anymore. And at one, like bringing your house, making it whole again, using this part that you were just hiding from.
And you can only hide from so long, as even you talked about at the beginning, the signs in the body start from a whisper to a tapping to can't ignore. They're smacking you upside of the head, and it just gets louder and louder and louder. And then people think, oh my gosh, like my body hates me. It's against me. I have, the body is attacking me, all these autoimmune, but it's trying to get louder and get your attention of, like you said, that room that we need to do some clearing in here. There's something up. And instead of taking these as signs of, oh, maybe I should look over there, I should open that up, we just push it away until you can't ignore it anymore, right? As was your experience, I think, as was my experience, as many people I hear get to the point where you just can't ignore it anymore. And that's when you suddenly go into it.
That's part of what I would term the genius of pain. Pain is a messenger telling us that something is not okay. Something needs attention. And at some point, it cannot be ignored. And that's not to harm you, it's to alert you. And all human beings, we're all wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure. That's how we're wired. So it's not a surprise to me or you, I'm sure, that people would have blocks to going into a past lifetime. And there are, as you know, definitely plenty of ways of getting around that block. But what we're all being called for is basically what Joseph Campbell talked about in A Hero with a Thousand Faces, The Hero's Journey. We have to go and confront the dragon that's guarding the cave. We have no other choice. I mean, we can come back and do this exact same thing again in another life, and then one after that, and then one after that. That's fine. You live in a free will universe. I don't want to do that. I'd rather find the courage to face the thing that I've been suppressing for so long and reclaim that pantry in my house and derive the strength that comes along with doing that, because that's what happens. You get stronger when you stop running from something and you turn and you confront it. And our literature is filled with this, filled with it. Like the Wizard of Oz. Everybody's terrified of the Wizard of Oz, the great and powerful, mighty Oz. And when they finally confront him, he's a scared old man talking into a microphone.
It also gives you that courage when you go in and you see the repeating patterns and you see how many times you have already been repeating this pattern in life after life, and in your ancestral line, and how it's coming in now that, like you said, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this story. Like I'm done, right? It kind of gives you that courage of like, okay, I'm done. And part of that, I think, is putting that story away, that it's easy to get obsessed with the past lives too. And it's so cool and interesting. But if we keep bringing it towards us and we keep bringing that story, well, that's not letting it go.
Well, and this is why I was talking about the past life tourism. Like I never would take somebody into a past lifetime without resolving whatever came up. Like I'm not interested in just going and saying, "Oh, look at that trauma, huh? Wow, woo, that's something else," and then just walking away from it. Like, we're going to resolve it because the pain is always going to be relational. Always. There has to be some moment, whether it's a present life regression or a past life regression or a spiritual regression, there has to be a moment of atonement, of at one through forgiveness. So if you were burned as a witch in a past lifetime, there are going to be people that participated in that who are willing to come forward and apologize for what they did. It happens every single time. There's going to be an ability for you in your present incarnation to go back and rescue your past life self. There's going to be a way for your past life self to let go of whatever she's been holding on to, which may be a sense of betrayal, a fear of doing this work because it's going to happen again. Part of betrayal is not being able to trust people, maybe hatred or anger. None of that's going to be helping her and hence helping you. We've got to heal that. We have, that's my opinion. So when I was trained as an EMT, there's 2 steps. When there's somebody lying in the street, the first step is a rapid assessment. Even if they've got something going on that's obvious in the front, like a big wound or something on their arm, you're not supposed to start dealing with that because they may have something sticking out of their back that could kill them. You're supposed to do head to toe, front to back, rapid assessment. What's going on? And then now you do something about it. There's interventions. And I feel like that's the same with us. Like, we do a rapid assessment. We figure out what's going on. Maybe it's not a rapid assessment. Maybe it's a longer assessment, past life, whatever. Now, what are we going to do about it? You were executed in 1787 in France as part of the terror. What are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about it? We're just going to look at it? And I know a lot of people do that. And there is some healing with bringing something that's been hidden to light. But for me, that's not enough. I want to be able to actually heal it. And when I say that, I mean heal the past life version of you who's still carrying the trauma of that experience. And that trauma is going to be something that has to do with other people. It might have been the people in the crowd that were jeering at them and clapping as they were being led to their execution. It may be the executioner. It may be the show trial that was put on, or their neighbor that turned them in and said they were part of the monarchy or something. Or they were a sympathizer of the king and therefore we should kill them. It's going to be something like that brings that person back, literally back to wholeness. And then an integration of that previous version of you with the present version of you. So the 2 of you can be one. If that's warranted. There are cases where it's not always warranted, where that person still needs to do some more healing. So that's something else that I want to assess in the moment is it in the client's highest and best interest to integrate with their past life self who's now been healed, or is it better for that past life self to go into the light now that they've released all of this?
Interesting how much your past life in this life, your past life career, we'll call it, has influenced how you do your work now and how you bring those skills into the therapy world. I think that's really amazing. Even how you're doing an assessment in that and seeing the whole greater picture, because like you said, if you're just going in as a tourist, there's more damage that can be done. And I feel like past life regression, it's almost trendy now. And people are like, this is cool, let's just go and play. But there can be more damage that you do by just opening it up and not seeing it through, because now all of a sudden it has this clear channel and wow, it's really coming through into your life because you didn't give it an opportunity to fully to release, to have some resolution before you close the door to it. Or you get into something and you're like, oh, wow, this trauma is terrifying. And as the therapist, you close it down and then it's all of a sudden bleeding through into everything.
And see, I've never closed it down ever. Even when the client starts to abreact, I've just said, okay, I want you, when I snap my fingers, to float 30 feet above the scene. 3, 2, 1, boom, float 30 feet above the scene. You can still witness it, but it doesn't affect you physically at all. You're safe, you're safe, you're safe. And the person, you can see him just totally calm down. Keep going. Tell me what's happening. from this place of safety. Let's see it through to being able to heal it.
I feel that's probably one of the worst things you can do is just shut it down, because you don't shut it down. All of a sudden you've opened the box, and now the box of that, rancid meat is open and the smell is overwhelming. And you're just like, no, let's try and shove it back in. And it's out in the open. You have to see it through in a safe way.
And yes, I agree. And the other thing I would say is that in the same way that a child looks to their parents in an unfamiliar scenario as to whether it's safe or it's not safe, because if the parents are freaking out, the kid's going to freak out. It's the same when you're in a situation like that. If the hypnotherapist, if the person doing the regression is themselves scared or freaking out, they're going to freak out the client. If on the other hand, you're like, it's okay, you're good. Nothing here can harm you, because your body is seated in my office in the chair, and you know that. Nothing here can harm you. And by moving through it, I promise you, we're going to resolve all of it. You see them calm down.
And such the importance of having a solid guide to bring you through that you don't have to do it alone, because like you said, we are wired to avoid pain. We don't want to go into our own stuff. And although it's important to do a lot of self-work, I find that there's points that you need someone else to create that safe space and to be able to push you a little bit further than you would have pushed yourself.
Yeah, just like having a guide taking you to, through the backcountry of anywhere in the world that you've never been. There, you're going to be looking to them like, is this safe?
Is this okay? Like, this is cool. I see this every day. I know this is foreign to you, but this is cool.
If you've got confidence in them, you're gonna be okay with it. They'll explain it to you. Yeah, we've done this before. It's all right. Don't worry about it. I was in New Zealand many years ago with my family, 3 kids and my wife, when my kids were still pretty young, and we were doing a rafting trip. And we came to this one section of the river, and the guide's like, there's a 20-foot waterfall right over there, and we're going to go over it. I'm like, oh, really? And he was so awesome. Like, he'd done it many times, and he was very reassuring. He's like, yeah, we'll be fine. It said, we may flip over, but we've all got life jackets on, and everybody's going to be fine. It's really going to be enjoyable. And I asked a few questions, and he answered them. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go with my family and my little kids over a 20-foot waterfall. But it was because of his experience and his confidence that I felt like it was safe for me and my family to do this. And I think it's the same with us. It was the same when I was a first responder, when I was a firefighter EMT, and I'd crawl into a car at the bottom of a ravine that's upside down, and I'm encountering a person in there who's injured. How do I talk to that person? Like, oh my God, man, this is really bad. I don't know if you're going to make it. Like, or it's okay. We got you. We got you. Everything's going to get better. Every moment that passes, everything is going to get better. There's a lot of resources out there for you, and we're going to have you out of here in a few minutes. I just need you to calm down. You're going to be fine. And talk them through. I'm going to cut your seatbelt off you right now, and you're going to be fine. You're not going to fall. You're okay. We're bringing in a longboard. I'm going to get you on the longboard, and they're going to slide you out, and then they're going to put a collar on you, or put a collar on you now, and this is why we're doing it. And then we're going to get you in the ambulance, and you're going to get to the hospital. You're going to be fine. Person relaxes.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Same thing, and you're right. And the work, and when you can explain to them, oh, this is what's happening, or oh, you're going through a death experience, and we're going to talk to your body and ask your body to turn down the volume on the physical symptoms and just breathe it out. And then at the end, it's like, oh my gosh, I just felt like I shed 20 pounds, because it feels so amazing to let that go and to have that guidance. And you don't have to do it alone, that you can have that person support you. I'm curious to ask you what you would, because we talked about, the courage from the client side, but do you have any advice for practitioners who might be, looking to go into hypnotherapy in general? Maybe they're a hypnotherapist and they're looking more into getting into past life regression, or more into kind of the, I guess, spiritual regression side of things. What would be your advice on what it's what it takes as a therapist to go down the unconventional, more fringe path that's maybe not as recognized.
They're all great questions, and there's so many answers embedded in there. The first thing I would say is the thing that really helped me a lot was in the beginning, reading books written by past life regressionists and spiritual regressionists, like the books by Michael Newton for spiritual regression. And there's a woman named Mary Lee LeBay, and I thought she had some phenomenal books. And it really gives you that kind of framework that you can adapt as your own. And as you adapt something as your own, you start finding ways of making it more for you. But I do think that there's something to watching a past life regression occurring and watching somebody else do one and reading these books and getting this universe, starting to understand it in your mind so that when you take someone in, you have an idea of where to go and what to do. Do some yourself. Go onto YouTube and do past life regressions that other people have recorded. I would say start there and recognize that you can't be super experienced the first time out of the gate. Do the first few and don't charge people. Just say, look, if it goes well, will you write a review for me? So they understand, and you're not trying to pretend that you've done this a million times. I think that could be really useful. And that can build up a lot of confidence in a very short period of time. You work with maybe 3 people, and you're going to feel like, okay, I'm ready to do this and get paid for it. And then there was a phrase in our class as we got toward the end and people were going to be graduating after a long class, very intense. There was a phrase when people were starting to freak out about, I'm not ready. And it was, you know more than they do. And that phrase really stuck with me and helped me get through those early days and the willingness to get on the horse, and that the people that didn't just start practicing right away, they inevitably fell away from it. It was the people that started practicing immediately who kept that mantra in their mind, you know more than they do. That your job is not actually you to change their life. It's to create the conditions whereby they can change their life. These are all things that I would say for somebody who's brand new to this.
I feel like it takes a lot of courage to step out and do something that's not conventional either. That when you were talking about all the senses too, that, some of your friends or your kids' friends' parents might look at you like, what is it that you do? And kind of step it out. It can be hard.
I've gone from feeling defensive about the fringe aspect of things to feeling totally on the other side. Just look around you. Look around you at the state of our societies. In particular, the lack of physical health of the population. Again, I remember the 70s. I remember what people looked like in the 70s. I remember what they looked like in the 80s and in the 90s. And it ain't anything like it is now. That the children are getting chronic diseases that were only being acquired by elderly people before. So anybody that we would typically say, oh, well, they're a blah, 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 whatever, they're at the top of a system producing this result. More of that is not going to get us home. It's going to be different things that people would have eschewed before, would have laughed at. And remember, the 3 stages of a new idea, not that hypnosis or regression is new, but it's kind of coming back around, is ridicule. That's the first stage. The second stage is vehemently oppose. The third stage is accept as conventional wisdom. So I would exhort people to look at the state of the health that we're dealing with. Do you want more of that? Then then by all means, give your adulation and your respect and everything else to the people that are in charge of that system. I personally would be horrified if I were sitting on top of a system that was producing worse and worse results all the time. And part of me actually feels sorry because they're so wedded to their training, to their dogma, that they would ridicule something outside of it when the results they're producing are an abomination. It's like producing your car manufacturer, and you go, well, the car will probably last about 18 months, and you'll have to have it in the shop every month. It'll cost you about $1,000 every time you bring it in. And it may run rough here and there, but, that's what happens with cars. We're going to accept that?
So it's really getting out of your own way to be jumping on this wave, right? That's revolutionizing.
And getting out of the propaganda. Every society has its propaganda. It has its mind control. That's what propaganda is. And you don't have to accept that just because this work is not in the mainstream, just because insurance doesn't cover it, that you have to apologize for it. And that the only thing the client cares about at the end of the day is the result. That's what they care about. And so if you can help people, then it's valuable. End of story.
And what amazing thing you can do by planting that seed, and that person gets to tell their family and friends and maybe slowly open the doors to the possibilities of actual true root cause healing can happen, that you are not your labels and your diagnoses and all of these, your experience of, sorry, we can't help you, that actually you can, and you can go on to live a very fulfilling and full life afterwards. I just think, wow, that's a really powerful seed to plant.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you for coming, for chatting, and for sharing your passions on, so many more big topics. I think it needs to be put out in the world. And that's what I strive to do on this podcast, is give an opportunity for people to just talk about all of the things that we don't want to talk about in just day-to-day small talk. It's important to have these conversations. Yes. So thank you. Thank you for coming on, bringing your passion today.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Past Life Project. For more information how I can help you to access the wisdom of your subconscious mind to support deep healing and transformation, visit my website at moniqueglover.com. If you loved what you just listened to, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Until next time.